Good day to you wherever you are. So, I didn't know whether to put up this video because there's not much to show, but I thought it was interesting and maybe one of those milestone attempts that you do as sort of a crazy idea that's quite fun and may as well be put up and discussed for a bunch of reasons. In front of you, you've got the output graphs of 7 AIs. Trust me, that's what it is. They're playing poker, if you would believe it or not. And fully able to bluff each other, fully capable of um, getting the same inputs you would get in poker. They understand what the five cards they're playing with. They play in rounds. They can raise or stick at any given point. They also understand what their opponents are betting and the pot they're betting for. And they start out awful. And they start out not knowing what they're doing, and they get pretty good by the end and learn as they're going along. And they do this by being made up of neurons, and those neurons sum a bunch of weighted inputs. Which, if you go back to your algebra, you might have a ace of clubs or spades that might be given a certain value by that neuron, might be summed with another value for when it's combined with the diamonds, and whether that neuron fires or not, well, only if it fires, it gets passed on to the next neuron, which can act as an AND OR gate. There is non-linearity, introduced into this value by a activation function. And I can feel your eyes glazing over with all that, because while it has an interesting effect of watching a bunch of AI go through nothing to learning poker and watching them play it, it's not that easy to explain, and also easy to explain why it works in a given situation. So I started with the challenge for myself to try a way of training 7 different ways of training these AIs. So these 7 AIs are not the same AI. They've all had different modifications made to their training. Uh, the aim was that this would all be reinforcement learning. They have no idea what's in the pot at any given moment. They only know that they win versus that they don't. They feel, I guess, the equivalent of pleasure or pain. They get reinforced as doing good when they win, and they get reinforced as doing bad when they lose. Some of the learning on this was you have to train them and tell them when they would have won, but when they failed to win because they didn't bet. You also have to reinforce and give them a pat on the back when they bluff an opponent, but not when they bluff and no opponents in the room with them. If you do one and not the other, if you do both, sorry, you get this situation where they all start randomly doing stuff and then only later figuring out that that's not the right thing to do. So very interesting learnings around how you sort of set these things up and get them to play the game, because you've got to write the game and the rules of the game of how this is working very well. I did try and build a word graph, a word cloud, to say this is the sort of things that this AI was looking at when it was making these decisions. Honestly, it didn't really come out very well. The words overlapped and everything like that. So the task of getting the just 7 neural networks set up and playing poker defeated me this weekend, but I did it. I managed my accomplishment, lived my dream. Way. So this one's a bit of an awkward one. It's a video that I'm going to put out there to show, milestone of, yeah, I managed to get, a whole room of different poker playing AI playing. And I mean, look at the red and the green are doing quite well, and that's £500, 500 widgets. I don't know value difference between there and there, and some of them, two of them have just dropped off the face of the earth and are currently in negative value. It's interesting that that poker seems to be a really good way to test different AIs against each other, and it's been a little bit of a dream of mine to get set up a poker battleground. The reason being is it is a zero-sum game. One AI wins at the expense of another. It does have the combination of inputs which are string variable tokens. Then the cards themselves are not have numbers, but they don't. Um, it also has inputs as purely mathematical numbers, as in you have to understand how and count the value of the pot. And it really focuses on an AI's ability to do and or gates, i.e., the neurons that are above and in its structure have to focus on sorting the data, because it's not just a case of noticing that getting a king is good. It's understanding that A, you've got two kings and that's better, and B, it doesn't really matter that you've got one king if the other guy is putting a huge bet in, because he probably does have two kings. And doing that's quite hard for an AI, because when they start, they don't even know they're playing poker. They don't get told the rules. They just have another machine in the program that feeds back and tells them whether they win or not. And just from getting good feedback and bad feedback, they learn to play and slowly optimize themselves to play better and better. And an interesting lesson is you sort of see these AIs get better together, and you can sort of see that when one starts falling, it starts falling, another one rising, and that's because usually they learn off each other and start spotting strategies that's going on with the other, and pick up that the other was bluffing all along. So, bit of a bum video, nothing to really, no major lesson here. It's interesting. It was fun to do, and I guess the takeaway from it is an interesting philosophy question. If I hit X on this and close it, then all seven AIs will cease to exist. Why does that make people feel uncomfortable? Given that these things are not real in one sense, but they can improve and they've learned, is that an uncomfortable thought? And that's the question I'm going to leave you with. Bye.